Hey everybody, how you doing? It's been a minute since I've done one of these, but I just saw Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, and I loved it, and I wanted to do one of these reviews. So, number one, tons of spoilers. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Number two, I've got like 7 points. There's so much of this movie I'm not going to talk about, but I loved it, so I want to talk about some of it. If I'd love to hear what you thought of it as well. You can put a comment. If I know you personally, please email me, direct message me, because I'd love to talk about it. So good. Step one, number one story. Just such a good story. So well done. Everything made sense. Everything felt like it was part of the universe, even in the new parts. And the criticism I've seen is that this was like an apology or like a placating a toxic fan base, and I don't think that at all. It took things from Episode 8. I Last Jedi. I kind of think that Last Jedi Episode 8 feels a little bit like Episode 1 in that it was kind of a different movie. Didn't quite fit, and some of the characters, acted differently than what you would expect or know. But there were things that they took from it and they built it. And Episode 9 was amazing. It was a great culmination. It's my favorite of this last trilogy, definitely by far. It was so good. Um, I love Palpatine, bringing him back. Brilliant idea. I cannot believe I didn't see that coming. Yeah, I didn't realize that he would be the grandfather of Rey. Brilliant story idea, and I'm guessing they thought that from the beginning. It's really well done. Um, I loved, and I didn't see it coming. It's just when Kylo and Rey are fighting using the Force over the carrier, and then the lightning comes out. I was like, for a second, I was like, wait a second, that's Palpatine's. Is she a Palpatine? But I didn't see it at all up to that point. It was brilliant. So whoever came up with that, J.J. Abrams or whoever, brilliant. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I just loved Rey's character arc. It was so cool. In some ways, she kind of felt more like the girl we all met in Episode 7, Daisy Riddle. Amazing. You're great. So good. And I just love the Jedi training. I love the her journey to become a Jedi. Just so well done. So well acted and committed, and really great job. Um, Also, when it comes to other characters, so many cool new characters. The ones I liked really off the top of my head, loved Zori Bliss, the Kerry Russell character. So cool. It was on screen and instantly was like, oh my gosh, so many good stories could be told about her. It's kind of like, it reminded me of like when I saw Boba Fett for the first time. It was like barely in the movie and like, oh my gosh, there's so much you can do with that character. She did great. I love the little dude who like has to reboot C-3PO. Awesome. I loved also the little droid, the new clone droid was cool. Off the top of my head, those were good things. Another character that felt new was the General Hux. Brilliant storytelling, brilliant writing. It totally made sense for him to be the spy, and they gave his reasoning why made sense, and then they killed him, which also made sense. It was great. And that new general, totally, I loved it. Totally great. Sorry, looking at my notes just to make sure I don't miss anything. Also, um, did not see Harrison Ford coming back. Did not see that at all, and I don't know how much of that was. I'm guessing that whole scene was all about Carrie Fisher. It was all about Princess Leia, but unfortunately, when she passed, I'm guessing they just didn't film it, and I'm glad they gave it to Harrison instead of trying to. Deep fakes aren't quite good enough yet. I'm sure they will be in the next year or two, but I'm glad that there was an actual actor doing that scene with the new now Ben Solo. And Harrison normally doesn't seem like a teddy bear in film, and he seemed like a dad who loved his son and who believed in his son, and that was so cool to see. Episode 7, we don't really see that. Just little kind of moments, and this was just it was nice. That's the version of Han Solo that I thought he was going to be once he got older, and it was great to see. And yeah, I know, I know. Um, yeah, it was great, and that brings me to Adam Driver. That's Kylo Ren. Just dude, you're spectacular. A great job. completely committed. Again, I felt like a lot of things were kind of a little looser in episode 8, but episode 9 it made perfect sense. I loved such a great performance, and I loved the fight with Rey. Both of them were three. I don't remember. Anyway, Adam Driver with lightsaber, awesome, spectacular. And I loved the conversations. I loved how they brought back the thing of them being able to communicate, and I loved the whole story device of using, like, he rips off the necklace, and then when they're fighting later, they strike the Darth Vader helmet falls down. Just great, and it's part of episode 8. Totally awesome part of episode 8. And I love how they used it, which was great. Let's see what else. And that almost done. Brings me like towards the end. The whole final fight scene with the Emperor was awesome. And one thing that always bugged me with episode 6 was just the whole, like, hey, I'm totally evil, but you're not allowed to strike me, or you're not allowed to fight me, and if you fight me, you go to the dark side. And I've always like, I think if you create a big space station that's going to blow up a planet full of teddy bears that are innocent, I'm thinking you can fight. Just me. But I love how they did it. I love how it actually made much more sense to me in episode 9 than it did in episode 6. And I loved it. The one thing that I would have changed, but and I'm sure they thought of it, and there's just things that I don't know about, is why they didn't do it. But when she calls out to the Jedi, and then the voices start talking to her of these past Jedi, I didn't realize who all those voices were until I looked at the credits. I recognized some of the voices, but not all of them. And I wish, like, if they had gone when she's looking out, and then they kind of come back to her, and then if they kind of like go into her iris when they were talking, I would have loved to have seen those characters say those lines. And I know someone on YouTube is about to go viral with that idea, which you're welcome. I don't have the ability to do it, or I would do it. But just have them say the lines, or just even have the lines be spoken where they're just like standing there, or a Force ghost version of there, and you can kind of either go this way, kind of going one and the other and the other and the other, can kind of push in, or can push back, and you kind of see them as they go forward, and we go back from the black of iris back to the normal shot. Then yeah, I think that would have, I don't understand why they didn't do it, but I'm sure there was a reason. And then just to continue that, I would have loved to have seen that. And then when she's protecting herself, I love how, like, his own evil defeated the Emperor. Love that. And his own attack being just forced back to him was awesome. And I just, to continue the idea I said before, I would love it if she had like the lightsaber, and as they're going, and she's kind of standing, and then she takes the second lightsaber and she brings it like that. I would have loved that. And in the scene, there's like these pulses where she's like holding, and then pulse, and then holding, pulse. Like on each of those pulses, if like the first pulse, there had been like Luke and Leia behind her, and then the second pulse, you have like Obi-Wan and Yoda behind him, and then another pulse, and then you have Anakin, you have all these other, and Samuel Jackson and Yoda, and just those pulse, and then like the final pulse, they made this big deal about there being like 1,000 Jedi behind her, and in the scene there's like 1,000 Sith Lords who are just hanging out for no reason, I guess, hanging out in the stands. In that last pulse, if there had been like all these Jedi, just like boom, and like that's what undoes him. I think that would be awesome. And again, if you're awesome at Final Cut Pro or something, then please take my idea and do it, because I would love to see it. And I'm just saying, I got a green screen, so whereas I can't film myself doing it, let me know. I'll send you. I'll send you some footage, and if you could put me in the scene for the 1,000 Jedi, that'd be awesome. But yeah, but it works. Such a great scene and such a great way to do that. And then the finale, the finals, the last, the epilogue type stuff, and the declining action. Some people, I think the placating, people are like, well, they're just, Chewie. They say, oh, how are you doing, Chewie, immediately? Like, is that placating? Maybe, but it was a mistake in episode 7, I think, for them Princess Leia not to consult Chewie first instead of going straight to Rey. That would have made more sense. But, so they do that, and then they give a medal, which they should have done in episode 4. So is it placating? Maybe a little, but it makes total sense. And it's totally sense that he gets his due in episode 9, which was spectacular. So yeah, that was awesome. And then I like how love was a part of it, but it wasn't like the main part of it. Like, for a second, it looked like they were pairing everybody off because it was like, okay, Ben and Ray, and then Finn with that other woman who went through the same experience he did, basically. I wrote down that actress's name somewhere. Naomi. Naomi was amazing in that. Instant chemistry. And then, of course, Poe, I love that backstory with him and Kerry Russell. And um, I also loved how, like, so everyone's hugging and, like, you see a little kissing going on and stuff like that. And then Poe looks over at Bliss, and it's kind of like, hey, and she's like, and he's like, oh, okay, I respect that. Mental head nod, mental high five. I thought that was great and well done, and yeah, so that was great. And then the epilogue with Rey and Tatooine going back there, spectacular, the lightsabers, Luke and Leia, and then the callback to earlier where it's like, what's your name? And Rey Skywalker, just absolutely beautiful. And I just loved the movie. I loved how they, it is interesting how Palpatine now is kind of the main focus. It's called the Skywalker saga, but it's really about his rise and fall. Um, just really well done. I think there's too much money to be made. I think they're going to have to come back to this, and I think they will. And I am a bit bummed that they killed off Ben Solo. I thought great job with Kylo Ren to Ben Solo and just amazing. But the thing is, if Palpatine, while he's being evil, has some side chicks and has some kids, then I'm sure Kylo Ren was doing the same thing. Um, so that they'll come out and would make sense. Like that's a hidden part of his life no one would know about. So that'd be cool. So anyway, I wanted to thank you if you had anything to do with this movie. I am sorry I only know J.J. Abrams, but I'm sure there's writers, the actors, of course, producers, visual artists, everybody. I sat through all of the credits because I don't know any of you at all, but you deserved me at least sitting down and seeing your name scroll by. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I love the movie. And yeah, may the force be with you. Thank you so much. Go see it. It's amazing.